This episode is brought to you in partnership with the Permian Basin Oil and Gas Magazine, delivering trusted oil and gas news and industry insight. We appreciate their support of real conversations like the one you're about to hear. Subscribe today at pbog.com. Good afternoon. This is Grant Swartzwelder, and welcome to another episode of Oilfield Strong. Today we're going to be talking something a little different than just oil and gas, but it has huge ramifications not only for oil and gas with abandoned or inactive wells, but also as a great potential energy source. We're going to be talking about geothermal energy, what the challenges are, what the potential is. And today I'm very fortunate to have just a wealth of knowledge in this man. Barry Smitherman comes from a background of being on the Railroad Commission, PUC, you were board of directors of ERCOT, and now has started and is the chairman of the Texas Geothermal Energy Alliance. So we're going to be talking about all things geothermal and how this could fit into our energy domain. So Barry, thank you for being on.
Good to be here.
When I think of geothermal, I think of hot water coming up, kind of like Old Faithful. Am I right? Or I'm probably a little on the simplistic side.
Well, that's what most people would think of as well. They would think of Old Faithful, the geyser there in Yellowstone.
Right.
Iceland has a lot of geothermal energy. It's right there at the surface.
Right.
Indonesia, California, the geysers project. That's what most people think of. That's the traditional geothermal hot water close to the surface. But what we're talking about now is going down to where the hot rock is, not just harvesting on the surface, flashing some sort of medium across it, whether it's water or supercritical CO2, bring that steam up to the surface to drive a turbine to make electricity.
And so you're not harvesting the water from those depths. You're going to, you say flash, so you're going to send water down, let it heat up and come
Right.
back? Is that
right? We're going to bring the water to the heat instead of the traditional way is where the heat comes up to the water. Mm-hmm. So we will be drilling down deep to hot rock. You know, if you drill deep enough anywhere on planet Earth, you're going to hit heat because theoretically the center of the Earth is as hot as the surface of the sun. So that's what we're trying to get down to where it's hot enough. We're talking, 200 C in order to make steam, bring that to the surface, and drive a turbine.
All right. Now, I don't mean this question to be kind of Snyder water, but why do we need this?
Well, we need everything. In Texas, for sure, we're looking at demand for electricity probably doubling by 2030, 2031. We could talk about where it's coming from. A lot of it, it's data centers that are projected to be here. But a lot of it is out in the Permian. It's out in the oil field. The Permian Basin Petroleum Association, Texoga, and others are estimating that they'll double or triple their load by, say, 2035 or 2038. As you know, right now, the Permian Basin is one of the most prolific oil and natural gas basins in the world. It's number one in America. They need a lot of power. They've been trying to get off of diesel generation out in the field. They want to electrify everything that they're doing out there. And so we need it all. We're going to need every resource that we have, and geothermal has the ability to play a big role here.
And these wells that you're will be drilling or using inactive wells or orphan wells, explain that part, but also is that throughout Texas or are there certain areas? Because I know like Nevada, California are kind of known for geothermal. Are there certain parts of Texas that are more geothermal friendly?
There are. Actually, if you look at a band from the border close to the coast up to Houston and up into East Texas, basically the Eagle Ford Shale.
Yeah, that sounds like.
Is where the heat is relatively close to the surface. Now, I'm still talking 3 miles-ish. Okay. So it's not right there on the surface like it is in Yellowstone, but relatively close. And then along the border with Mexico all the way out to El Paso. There are really good resources out in El Paso and along the border. So one of the great things about this, particularly in the Eagle Ford, is this where most of the people live. So we can connect them to power generated from geothermal without having to build a lot of brand new transmission, having that resource close to the load, we call it, the demand, is really a benefit that we could take advantage of. Now, there have been a lot of wells drilled in the Eagle Ford.
Right.
Having served on the Railroad Commission, I
You-
know this
You
intimately.
approved a bunch of those, yeah.
That's right. Some of them could be used for geothermal production. What we have found is that they're really better for testing. So we take an abandoned well, we use it as a test well to see how deep we have to go down to get to good hot rock, what the gradient is. Uh, Occasionally, the integrity of that well is not sound enough to turn it into a geothermal well. So we go over some distance from that and we drill a brand new well. But we've used that old well to help us identify where we need to be, that this is in fact a good spot, and we'll drill a new well.
Well, you kind of just addressed it, but let's go a little deeper on. I kind of was hoping that this would be the answer for all the inactive wells, orphan wells out there, that we could just use those. But it sounds like, as a starting point, yes, but either integrity or depth, probably not.
Well, it's possible.
Okay.
One of the first pieces of legislation that we passed in the 2023 session, which is really the first one that Texas Geo was active in, Senate Bill 1210 allows a geothermal operator to adopt an abandoned oil well. So that's great public policy. As you know, most of the time we have 5,000 to 8,000 orphan wells in Texas.
And growing.
It's always a problem. It's a problem because when times are good, when prices are high, no one wants to divert a crew over to plug in a well. They want to be drilling for oil or natural gas.
One's an asset, one's a liability.
That's right. When times are bad, and we've seen it, you and I are old enough to have seen.
Unfortunately, many times over.
I've seen this movie before a couple of times when prices collapse, pink slips start flying out in the oil patch, and then no one has the financial ability to pay for someone to go out and plug the well. We have firms going out of business. So it's a dilemma. It's two situations that are tricky. This provides some opportunity, and maybe over time, geothermal could be a big player in addressing the abandoned well issue.
Well, let's also talk economics, because to drill a 3-mile well, I don't know what type of ground facilities are required. How does this compare to other energy sources? Is it economically viable right now?
It's a little expensive right now,
Okay.
particularly when
And it's just starting off, so you should be able to drive that.
it's a little expensive right now, but with economies of scale
Okay.
coming along, advances in the technology, both in the drilling side of it and in the recovery and the above ground part of it, we should be able to bring the cost down. I think in the not too distant future, we'll see levelized cost of energy in the $40 to $50 a megawatt hour range.
And how does that compare to others?
Generally in ERCOT, prices are between $20 and $30.
So slightly more.
We're slightly more. We're coming down.
Okay.
I think we are probably where wind and solar were 10 or 15 years ago. As you know, the way the market works here in ERCOT, if the wind is blowing and the sun is shining, those resources are put on the grid. They have zero marginal cost. We'll kind of set aside the subsidy issue for the moment. And then generally, natural gas fired generation sets the price of power in ERCOT. So we think if we can get a couple more projects up and running, we could become competitive with some natural gas units.
And with costs going down, I assume that has to do with technology improving. Tell me kind of are there any challenges with the technology, or is it all kind of proven and now we just need to improve or make it more cost effective?
It is proven if we are talking about relatively shallow drilling through sedimentary rock. So one of the beauties of geothermal, we can take advantage of the oil and gas skill set
Sure.
that Texas has
Plenty
better
of-
than anybody else. We've got the technology, we got the workers, we got the capital, we got the companies that know how to do it. That's why a lot of big integrated oil companies have established geothermal divisions to take advantage of the skill set and the knowledge that they already have. So we can drill down, 2 or 3 miles through sedimentary rock now using existing technology. Where we really want to get to, Grant, is we want to get to that hot, hard rock. And when we get down to there, we're going to need some drilling techniques that are emerging, but not everywhere today. For example, there's a company called Quays. You may have heard of them.
Okay.
They vaporize hard rock. I've seen their pilot project out in Marble Falls where they're going through granite, vaporizing it with something called a gyrotron. Think about a kind of a mini nuclear reactor that generates so much power and heat that it vaporizes rock. So the idea would be we use traditional drill bit technology to get down through the sedimentary rock. When we get to the hard rock, we'll use this technology or another one to get down to super hot rock where we very efficiently can turn that into steam.
Does seem like there's significant overlap between oil and gas per se and geothermal. Other things like that, it doesn't sound like do you complete that well similar to an oil and gas well, or is it really you're just using the well bore itself to circulate?
Well, you would need to complete it. I mean, you need to cement it just like you would in an oil and gas situation. The well bore is going to be bigger than we use in oil and gas. It's probably going to be 9 to 12 inches in diameter rather than the long string being 3.5 to 5 in
Sure.
an oil and gas situation. We'll have to cement it. It'll have to have the integrity. The pipe will have to withstand high heat and pressure. But other than that, it's the same process.
And then once you get up on ground, what I would assume the steam turbines or whatever you use up there to generate the electricity, that's got to be established technology.
It is. It is. That technology is established, though there are some groups that are playing around with using supercritical CO2 because apparently it can capture heat more efficiently than water steam can.
Okay.
So the whole idea, and we do this with almost every form of electricity that boils water, whether it's nuclear, coal, gas, is we got to get that steam up and flowing through a turbine. And the hotter the steam, the more efficient it is, the less of it we need, the more electricity we can pull out of the system.
With some of the technology still being developed or the cost trying to be driven down, it seems like there's a role for government or academia. How have y'all approached that? What has the role of the state government, federal government, or various universities?
Yeah, great question. There's a role for both. Probably the most known project right now is the Forge project in Utah, which is a project funded principally by the Department of Energy. They have announced, and I think they have already maybe done their IPO in the last couple of weeks. That's to be a 400 megawatt geothermal project, and they're going to sell most of that production into California. California, now we say we never want to repeat what California does in Texas.
Well, at least
California
let them-
actually has a geothermal requirement in their renewable portfolio standard. So that power will go there. Here in Texas, let me bring it closer to home. Sage, which is a company down in Houston, founded by 3 Shell oil company veterans,
Okay.
including the person that was responsible for all drilling worldwide. They have an agreement with the San Miguel Electric Co-op to harvest geothermal energy south of San Antonio. So that's working with a co-op, which is a not-for-profit. They're actually putting electrons on the ERCOT grid now.
So, given your background with Railroad Commission, PUC, kind of on the regulatory side, but you also a big believer in free enterprise, how do you see regulation needing to fit into this to develop this?
We've been working with the Railroad Commission on updating the deep drilling regs for geothermal. That project is coming along well. I mean, Railroad Commission does a great job.
Sure.
They work hand in glove with industry rather than other agencies in America who work in opposition to industry. So we've had a good working relationship with them. We think we'll be completing that pretty soon. The University of Texas Bureau of Economic Geology is deeply involved in this project. For example, there's a project in Presidio County, way out west, close to the border where there's good heat,
Yep.
that the Bureau of Economic Geology did a great study on. There's an economic development opportunity for harvesting that heat, partially for power generation, but also for for drying vegetables, for example, that are brought in from Mexico. That's very energy intensive, and if we can do it using geothermal energy, that's a great win-win for them. So we got UT, we got the federal government. Geothermal is the one non-oil and gas generation source that President Trump is actually in love with, as
Okay.
is Secretary Wright.
From what I've heard, they've kind of pushed back on solar and a bunch of other things.
Don't mention wind
Okay.
to President Trump. I'll tell you
But
that's not a good.
geothermal is okay.
Geothermal's fine, and
Why
because
is that, do you
well,
think?
but it's because of what we've covered already. It takes advantage of the oil and gas technology. It's a similar process. It is really an inexhaustible resource, but it's not determined by the weather. In other words, we don't need the wind to be blowing or the sun to be shining. What happens on the surface doesn't determine our ability to put electrons on the grid. I think that's why Secretary Wright and President Trump like it.
Is it dependent on tax reform or tax rebates to be economical? Is that part of the strategy? Because that obviously solar and wind, that's been a huge component.
And those are being phased out. And there are some advantages in federal tax law. I think in the big, beautiful bill, there were some for geothermal.
Was it?
For example, if you convert an old coal plant to a geothermal plant, there is definitely some tax advantages there, and some folks are looking at that.
But you would almost say that with solar and wind, they're doing it greenfield. What you're talking about is possibly reclaiming or kind of improving an existing situation by converting
I'll
it.
give you a great example. In East Texas, where Vistra or Lumina, or it used to be Texas Utilities, they have a coal plant called Monticello. It's been retired, but it's a big piece of property. There's a group called T5 Smackover that has gone in and bought a bunch of land around it. They're actually trying to buy the rest of it from Lumina, and they want to convert it into a geothermal opportunity that will generate both electricity and lithium from the hot brine.
And explain that, because you're pushing the water into the well and it's going to extract
Well,
lithium along with that?
In this situation, they would be drilling two wells, one an injection well, another recovery. So they could either recover the brine, the hot brine, directly by tapping into it, think about tapping into a reservoir,
Right.
or drive it with water from the surface in a direction across
So
hot
like a
rock.
water flood in a way, but
That's right.
you're just sweeping.
So when you bring it back out, it's hot brine, and then you separate the lithium out of that, and you put it back down hole and do it again.
Interesting. Looking at your website, it clearly looks like there's a lot of industry and a lot of private sectors that are pushing this as well. So it's not, I hate to say, purely a government base. It's government's important, but it sounds like there's a lot of private industry support for this type of thing.
Well, to be clear, there is no Texas state government support.
Okay.
So
That's a great point.
there's nothing there from the
Okay.
state of Texas. In fact, one of the things that we have been pushing for, we pushed for it last session, we might push for it this coming session, is to make sure that geothermal is included in the Texas Energy Fund. So the Texas Energy Fund was set up after Winter Storm Uri.
Right.
It's $10 billion to be used as a low interest loan program for half of your capital for dispatchable thermal generation resources. When they created it, they were thinking mainly natural gas fired generation. But clearly, geothermal is a thermal resource, and it's dispatchable. So we worked last session to.
And real quick, dispatchable. Explain that.
Yeah, it means it's got an on-off switch. It's not determined by Mother Nature,
Okay.
but
there you go.
rather by mechanisms controlled by human beings to turn it on and off.
And the advantages of that are
Is it's not dependent upon the weather. So
back to project or Winter Storm Uri.
that's right. So when the wind's blowing and the sun's shining, it's great. It's great, clean power, low cost for consumers. When it stops blowing, or when it gets dark, which it does every evening, right?
Yes.
Then we have an issue. We have to have something that we can turn on, and that's what dispatchable energy is.
So What additional challenges do you see? It sounds like lowering the cost, financial, technology. What other things in the next year to 5 years need to be achieved or improved to make
Well, I
this?
think access to capital is important, and
Okay.
that's why we continue to ask for being included explicitly in the Texas Energy Fund
Okay.
so that our operators could have access to 3% capital. That would be helpful.
That would be very.
I think the technology is going to evolve on its own because there are enough companies right now that are putting money to work to try to uncrack how you get down to super hot rock. So I don't think you need much government help there. And we just need to run the plays. We need a couple more of these projects to get up and running so that we can show proof of concept and bring the price point down.
And so in the next 5 years, you expect what?
I think in the next 5 years, by 2030, 2031, I'd like to see 500 to 1,000 megawatts of geothermal energy on the Texas grid. I think we can get there, particularly if we can marry the electric generation with the critical mineral harvesting. You know, we've talked
Yeah.
about China possessing most of the world's critical minerals, and that is a national security imperative for us to be able to do it here. So if we can marry those two together, and it looks like East Texas is a really good place for that.
Well, you use the word smackover. That's coming from Arkansas, and I assume that reservoir comes all the way
It
down.
does. It dips down into East Texas,
So
and
you're going after the same thing that they're having all sorts of lithium success for in the southern Arkansas area.
that's correct. Same formation.
It is amazing. Had a chance to talk to Doug Robinson about Natura, and they're generating power, but the implications on water and kind of byproducts are amazing. And it sounds like the same type thing here, but you're generating power, but there's also byproducts or by kind of additional advantages, whether it's this lithium or use of water.
Yeah, I think a couple of important advantages are we don't use a lot of water, and what we use, we recover.
Okay.
So it's a highly efficient system. For example, this project I addressed earlier, south of San Antonio, Sage with San Miguel. Right now, it's a 3 megawatt project. It is designed to be scaled up to a 15 megawatt project. And the amount of water that they're going to use is about the size of a municipal swimming pool. So they'll use that water and they'll use it over and over again. That's great. The surface footprint is relatively small. So think about the size of a solar panel farm footprint. Very large, right?
Right.
Wind farm, very large. Coal plant, very large. Here we're talking about something that's in the neighborhood of 10 acres.
Well, I tell you, my youngest daughter has been preaching to me about AI and the size of it, but also the use of the water. So I need to introduce her to geothermal because it sounds like it's the anti-AI from an environmental standpoint. So there sounds like there's some good arguments there.
Well, I will tell you that that Sage, the company in Houston, has, this is publicly announced, they have an agreement with Meta to source them a certain number of megawatts throughout the country for data center hyperscaler use.
And to follow up on the transmission side, because of the market you're in, it sounds like the connection, it's not going to be as expensive or burdensome as what I'm hearing. Like I always have thought on wind and solar being out in the middle of nowhere. You know, if that's where the good wind or sun is, then it takes a lot of transmission. Here, you're in the heart of activity.
Generally, we are where transmission has already been built. Now, there may need to be a few enhancements, but we're not talking about string and wire 200 miles.
A lot of advantages. Barry, appreciate you coming in.
Thanks, Grant.
As you've just seen, there's a lot of potential for geothermal, and some challenges, but it seems like they're well on the way. Please check out the get this right again, Texas Geothermal Energy Alliance. I bet there's a lot of good information there. Hope you enjoyed learning a little bit about something very different, but could be a huge advantage for Texas in the energy spectrum. If you like what you're hearing, please check out Oilfield Strong and the other videos that are associated with it. Thank you.